Hello, Year 10. Having just started to look through a few MyMaths homework marks, I've noticed that two of you were struggling on the square and cubic units homework. So what I'm going to do is just spend a little bit of time going through this exercise with the questions that I've got in front of me and see if this will help explain or support some of you that didn't get such a great score. Now, one thing you'll already notice that I've done straight away before I start is I've written down some of the most common conversion facts moving from square units or moving from cube units. So, for example, I've written down 1 centimetre square is 100 millimetres squared. And certainly the video that you've already seen should be able to explain to you why 1 centimetre square, which is 10 millimetres by 10 millimetres, is 100 millimetres squared. What I've also done at the side, since some of these questions look like they involve standard form, is I've just written some of these numbers as powers of 10 already. So for example, 10,000 is 10 to the power 4, and that might be helpful as we work through some of these questions. So let's start. The first question is asking me to turn 41.07 centimetres squared into millimetres squared. So I can see already, looking at my first fact here, that 1 centimetre square is 100. So for that question there, all I need to do is times that number by 100. And I'm sure it's some of these earlier ones that you were getting correct first time. So if I times 41.07 times 100, I'm moving the digits 2 places, so that should be 4,107. So type that one in. Okay, the second one that I am doing, and you've just got to count the numbers carefully because you'll notice on MyMaths they haven't separated any of these larger numbers with commas. So it might be that when you were doing some of these questions, you just actually misread how many zeros there were. So I think that number there says 4,300,000, and it's asking me to turn meters squared into kilometers squared. So I can see that there are 1,000,000 meters squared in 1 kilometre square. So I'm not multiplying this time. This time I'm dividing. So I'm going to be dividing by 1,000,000. And 4.3 million divided by 1,000,000 is going to be 4.3. Okay, so 4,300,000 divided by 1,000,000 is 4.3. So there's 4.3 kilometres squared in that number of metres squared. Okay, the next one is to do with centimetres cubed. Again, I'm just going to look at that number carefully. It looks like 8,520,000. Okay, centimetres cubed. Asked to turn it into metres cubed, and I've got my fact here that there are 1,000,000. So again, I'm dividing that one by 1,000,000. And that will be 8.52. So let me type that in, 8.52. Okay, the next 4 questions are all in standard form. Okay, and we know when we did some work on standard form, there's a few little tricks that you can do with the indices, or you can write the numbers as ordinary numbers if that's helpful. I'm going to probably try and use the indices to save having to write out a lot of zeros. So the next one that I've got is 0.2 kilometers cubed, and I am writing it in meters cubed in standard form. So I know that 1 kilometre cubed is 1,000,000,000 or 10 to the power of 9 metres cubed. So I need to do 0.2 times 1,000,000,000 times 10 to the 9. And you can see now why having these already written as powers is super helpful. That isn't quite in standard form. I need to borrow one of those 10s to make this number between 1 and 10. So that is going to be the same as 2 times 10 to the power of 8. So, next one, it says 9.6 times 10 to the 11. And this is millimetres squared. So again, I'm going to be looking up here in a moment. And I'm turning it into metres squared. Okay, well, this one I haven't quite thought through yet, because you'll see that I haven't got a conversion result for millimetres squared to metres squared. So I'm just going to do a quick explanation at the side, just to help me get this right. I know that 1 metre by 1 metre, well, 1 metre is 100 centimetres, and 100 centimetres is 1,000 millimetres. So 1 metre square is the same as 1,000 millimetres by 1,000 millimetres. And 1,000 times 1,000 is 1 million, or 10 to the power of 6. Okay, so I know there are 1,000,000 millimetres squared in a metre squared. So on this one, I'm going to be dividing by 10 to the power of 6. Okay, and this is where I'm going to use the indices, because we know if we do a division with indices, we can subtract those indices. So this ends up being 9.6 times 10 to the power of, and 11 take away 6 is 5. So that one there should be 9.6 times 10 to the 5. Okay, moving on. Next one is 3.67 times 10 to the negative 2. Won't worry too much about that negative power. Metres squared, and I'm converting it into centimetres squared. So again, I'm going to read my second conversion factor at the top, that 1 metre squared is 10,000 centimetres squared. So there's going to be more of these. So I'm going to be multiplying by 10,000, or 10 to the power of 4. So if I'm timesing by 10 to the power of 4, well, nothing's going to happen to the 3.67. And again, this is where I can use my indices, because we know that 10 to the power of negative 2 times 10 to the power of 4, when you've got the same base number, we can add the powers. And negative 2 plus 4 is times 10 to the 2. So that one should be 3.67 times 10 to the power of positive 2. Okay, I'm just going to scroll up ever so slightly, give myself a bit more room, and do this last one. So we've got 9.3 times 10 to the minus 5 kilometres cubed, and we're converting this into millimetres cubed. Well, again, I haven't got the conversion rule for this, so I'm just going to have to think it through a little bit. It's going to be a massive number. Okay, so let's think this through carefully. There is, in 1 kilometre, 1,000 metres. Each metre is made up of 100 centimetres. So that is 100,000 centimetres. And then each centimetre has 10 millimetres. So that is 1,000,000 millimetres in a kilometre. But that isn't cube units. It would have to be 1,000,000 by 1,000,000 by 1,000,000. So that's 10 to the power 6 times 10 to the power 6 times 10 to the power 6. That sounds like 10 to the power 18 millimetres cubed in a kilometre cube. So I'm going to have to multiply this by 10 to the power of 18. And again, I'm going to use my powers. because I'm multiplying, I'm adding my powers, and -5 add 18 sounds like positive 13. So let's type that one in. 9.3 times 10 to the power of 8, times 10 to the power of 13. And let's hope I've not embarrassed myself. Get in. Okay, so that's 14 out of 14 on the first one. And having gone through this first slide, you might think, oh yeah, that's covered some of the issues that I've had there, sir. But I'm going to look at this second question. And we'll see how we get on with this, and we'll see if I need to work out some more conversions. Let me flip over to a fresh page, and I might need to just refer back to some of my conversions, or I'll just prove them again. So here we go. A rectangular swimming pool is 14 metres long. Well, it's not an official swimming pool then. And 8 metres wide. It is 1.2 metres deep all over. I don't think I'll be diving into that one. Find the volume of the pool and its surface area, the bottom and the four sides. So we're not doing the surface area of the top. Okay. So the volume is, well, it's a cuboid. And we know for a cuboid, we just multiply all the dimensions. They're all in metres, so I can go for it straight away. 14 times 8 times 1.2. So if I do 14 times 8 times 1.2, I'm using a calculator off screen if you're wondering. It's 134.4. Okay, and that is in metres cubed. And on the line below, it's asking me to convert that into centimetres cubed. So I won't flick back over a page, I'll just quickly go through how I know what the number is. I know that there's 100 centimetres in a metre. So if you imagine this was a metre cube, it would be 100 by 100 by 100 centimetres. And 100 times 100 times 100 sounds like a million to me, but I will just check. Yes, that is 1 million. So there are 1 million centimetres cubed in a metre cube. So I am timesing this by 1 million, or 10 to the power of 6. Now, if I times it by 10 to the power of 6 and write it like this, 134.4 times 10 to the 6, that isn't in standard form. And the reason this number isn't between 1 and 10, I need that to be 1.344, which would give me another times 10 times 10 to make it 134.4. So altogether, that should be 1.344 times 10 to the 8. So let me pop that in. 1.344 times 10 to the 8. Okay, surface area is a bit tricky because we're only doing 5 of the surfaces, and you need to make sure you are duplicating the right faces and not the wrong one. So I'm just really going to do a quick sketch of my swimming pool. So there we go. Imagine that is my swimming pool. I have a couple of rectangular faces that are, let's get this right, let's call that the 14 long, that's the 8 wide, and it is 1.2 deep. So if I think about this rectangle here, this rectangle is 1.2 times 14. And that is 16.8. So that is that long face. But of course there's 2 of those. So that is 16.8 as well. We've then got, let's do the front end and the back end. And they are 8 by 1.2 each. So each of those is 8 times 1.2. There's 2 of them, so there's 2 9.6s. And then we've got this whole bottom of the pool, which is 14 by 8. And that's 112. And remember, we don't need the top of the pool because that surface is water. So adding those all up, let's see what we get. Okay, I've got 164.8. But of course, do remember that when you generate these questions, you might get a slightly different set of numbers. So it says the surface area in meters squared. Yes, I was working in meters, so it's 164.8. And now let's see, I'm converting that into centimeters squared. Well, similar to here, but obviously not for volume. I know that a meter square is 100 by 100 centimeters, and that would be 10,000, which is 10 to the 4. Okay, so I'm going to be taking my number and to convert it into centimeters squared, timesing it by 10 to the 4. So 164.8. Well, just like before, that is 1.648 times 10 to the power of 2. And then I'm going to be timesing it by 10 to the 4 to turn it into centimetres squared. So again, collecting the powers, it will be 1.648 times 10 to the power of 6. So let me just type that one in, 1.648 times 10 to the power of 6. Okay, the pool needs to be lined with tiles. The tiles are 20 centimetres square and there's no gaps to try and make this question easier. Okay, how many tiles will this take? Well, we've got the area in centimetres squared, but I think it's easier to turn this into now a normal number. So that is the area that needs to be surfaced with these tiles. One tile is 20 by 20. It says it's a 20 centimetre square. So that covers an area of 20 times 20, which is 400 centimetres squared. So all we need to do to get our number of tiles is divide by 400. So if we take that number and divide it by 400, it's telling me I need 4,120 tiles. So pop that in. And then we've got a final question about the depth of the pool. The pool also needs to be filled to its full depth. How many litres of water will this take? Now, I don't know if in the slides there was something similar in terms of a question, but what you do need to know is what a litre is in terms of volume. Okay, and 1 litre is 1,000 millilitres, and 1 millilitre is 1 centimetre cubed. Incidentally, it also weighs 1 gram. So 1 litre is 1,000 centimetres cubed. So we had our volume earlier. If I want to turn that into litres, I just need to divide that by 1,000. So I'll just move up slightly. 1.344 times 10 to the 8 divided by 1,000. Well, 1,000 is 10 cubed. So when I divide by that, it would be 10 to the power of 5. So let me pop that in. 0.344 times 10 to the 5. Click, mark it. And there we go. So, I hope that has helped. Do remember, and I think I've said this on a previous video, the problem is with MyMaths, it's very, very good for quick answers. So like on that first page, it's very, very good for just quickly seeing whether you've got an answer right. In a slightly more long-winded question that can be worth multiple marks, MyMaths is only marking you on your final answer. So it will quite often allocate 0 marks, where in an exam situation you might have picked up a few marks. Okay? So just remember, folks, I'm more than happy to do this. It literally takes me the length of this video to make a video. And if you want extra support, I would much rather you get in touch and you ask for it. Because we're living in strange times at the moment, and whatever I can do to help, I will do so. So do keep in touch. That's me signing out, and goodbye.